Hello, Wonderhussy here on a blustery, overcast day in Death Valley, meeting my friend Better Call Paul. You might remember him from other videos I've done, but he just pulled up and he's got a canoe in the back of his truck. Hi, Paul.
Hi, good morning.
Paul, why do you have a canoe in the back of your truck in the middle of the desert?
Oh, we're going canoeing in Death Valley at the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere.
Oh, that's right, Lake Manly.
Okay, I've talked about this before. Lake Manly was a prehistoric lake in what is now called Badwater Basin, aka the lowest point in Death Valley, and the second lowest point in the Western Hemisphere. Sorry, Paul, you don't know everything. Anyway, prehistoric Lake Manly dried up more than 10,000 years ago, leaving just a crusty, bleached white salt pan. But every now and then, if it rains hard enough and long enough, Badwater Basin fills back up and ancient Lake Manly rises from the dead. And because of all the rain we've been getting lately as part of this so-called atmospheric river moving through California, on top of all the rain we got last summer with Hurricane Hillary, the Park Service has been reporting that Lake Manly is now deep enough to kayak in. And that's why I was headed out to Badwater Basin with Better Call Paul.
Okay, cruising along towards Death Valley, but we're not in the Tacoma over today, Paul. What is this?
This is the big house.
This is the big house that you use for towing people out of jams?
You know what? This is what I would prefer to use because it's bigger, but if it's going into mud or something, then I have to go get the Tacoma over.
Okay, if you watched my last adventure with Paul, you might remember that he has a crazy Mad Max-style, post-apocalyptic looking off-road Franken-rig called the Tacoma, which he uses to extract cars that get stuck in the mud in our part of the desert. And he earned the nickname Better Call Paul because he's the guy locals call when they're in a jam. But he also happens to be the kind of guy you call for a crazy adventure, like canoeing on a prehistoric desert lake. And for this adventure, Paul left the Tacoma back at the ranch and took his work truck, the Big Hoss.
Is this what you used? You went down to Kingman with Ross recently, right?
Yep, we went and took my dump trailer and we filled that thing up with about 10,000 pounds of mining equipment.
Wow. And that was in the Big Hoss.
That was in this truck with 5 of us in here.
What is this? This is a Dodge?
This is a 2016 Dodge Ram 4500. It's a 2-ton truck.
Yeah, and it's a beast.
And it's got a 450 horse Cummins.
So you're saying it can handle a canoe? Okay, so we're coming up on the outskirts of Lake Manly. You said it was 6 miles long and 3 miles wide?
Right, I believe this is it.
Driving through Badwater Basin, you can still see faint lines on the surrounding hillsides showing the high watermark of the prehistoric lake, which, according to the helpful interpretive signage, was as deep as 500 to 600 feet.
But this was like 150,000 years ago. You know, nowadays you're lucky to find any water in it. But back in 2018, spring 2018, there was enough water in Lake Manly to kayak in, and I happened to be out here in Death Valley at that time, but stupidly, I didn't go out there to check it out. And I've been kicking myself ever since, which is why I was so excited when Paul invited me to go out here today.
So I missed the boat, so to speak, back in 2018, but you might remember I brought my floaty out here last September when the lake had a decent amount of water in it from Hurricane Hillary. And while it was absolutely beautiful, it wasn't quite deep enough to float in, let alone put in a kayak or a canoe. But today, in spring 2024, at long last, my dreams of boating Death Valley might finally come true.
Okay, we're here. Only downside is, so are about 999 other people. I mean, I'm shooting this on Monday of President's Day weekend. So I don't know why I didn't expect everyone and their Aunt Sally to be out here, But hey. Okay, Paul's getting changed into his beachwear. Shorts and Tevas, huh?
Yep.
Not worried about the salt water?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I'm wearing
now,
galoshes.
I plan on going barefoot out there.
Oh, you're just going to go barefoot?
I needed shoes for this part.
Oh, I gotcha.
But once we get there, I'll throw these in the canoe. And
Oh, okay, you're just going to go barefoot. Well, I may end up doing the same. Who can say?
you may have to.
Why?
Well, your galoshes may sink down in the mud and kind of...
Just like at Burning Man last year, I learned that lesson. It was easier. People were walking around barefoot because shoes sink in. Oh, well, maybe I should wear my flip-flops then. Okay, time to get the canoe off. Okay, so far so good. I was afraid my galoshes would sink into the muck, but it's pretty firm. Although I do think I can feel one of my galoshes is leaking. Oh well, guess I should have gone barefoot like Paul. How's it going?
It's going along good.
Okay, good. Yeah, you look excited. What I like about you, Paul, is you're not afraid of people looking at you funny. And I should note, when Paul proposed doing this, my initial response was, oh no, they don't want people walking out on that when it's wet. Because when I came here back in September, after the Hurricane Hillary, they did have signs posted, you know, please don't walk on it, you'll leave footprints that could last 100 years. Well, they have removed all of that signage, and there's even information on the Death Valley National Park website, official website, asking you that if you do canoe or kayak out here to please just do so respectfully. So it's not prohibited. But yeah, according to what I read online, it's only about a foot deep. So I have my doubts as to whether or not we're actually gonna float in this thing between me and him. But Paul pointed out that it's very salty water, which is dense and more buoyant. So just maybe we'll be floating in a few minutes. Although considering all this wind, I guess we should have brought a sailboat.
One thing to consider if you do come out here to try and kayak Lake Manly, wear some kind of water shoes. Paul found that going barefoot was too painful because of the sharp salt crystals that make up the bed of this temporary lake. But when he tried to wear his Teva sandals, little salt crystals got inside the soles of those too, and cut up his feet pretty badly. But none of that was enough to deter Paul from dragging his canoe out to the water's edge.
Paul's the hardest working man in Death Valley, and that's no exaggeration. Boy, it looks like it'd be deep enough to float in, but it's really not that deep. I mean, you can see busted little pieces of salt crust. It's only a few inches. It just looks deeper, I guess, because it's so muddy you can't see how shallow it really is. Oh my God, look at this family. The dad's wearing swim trunks. He's got his beach towel. The little girls are splashing around in the lake. Okay, we're actually out in at least a few inches of water now. I mean, I'd say it's at least 4 or 5 inches. Ground is solid. It's a little bit easier dragging out here. We just may get afloat yet. Almost, huh? Sure. Okay, I'm gonna try getting in because I'm a little bit lighter. Let's see. Am I afloat? It feels like it. How about that? I'm dragging the bottom a little bit. Whee! Wow, look how salty my galoshes are from being in that. Ugh. Oh yeah, salty.
Meanwhile, while I was busy licking the salt off my boots, Paul doggedly dragged me far out enough onto the lake to where the canoe was finally afloat. And sure, because of the weather, the water was choppy and muddy and didn't look anything like those beautiful pictures on Instagram. But it was still pretty dang cool.
Oh, it's so windy! And my galoshes are leaking! Man, I'm just gonna take some footage of Paul floating and we're getting out of here. There he goes! Ladies and gentlemen, Lewis and Clark and the third unknown member of the expedition, better call Paul. Paul had a good point because it's so windy, all the water is probably blowing down to that end of the lake. It's probably way deeper over there. But we had to put in where we could. Good job, Paul. You did it. We did it. Successful float on ancient Lake Manly. Arr. Well, I definitely feel like a salty dog now, man. These galoshes are leaking like sieves. Ooh, my socks are going to be soggy and salty. Trudging back to the parking lot in defeat. Not really defeat. We still had an interesting adventure and a good time was had. It's just because of the wind, man. It's supposed to rain more tomorrow, which is great news. I guess it'll fill the lake even fuller and it'll be nice and calm afterwards and the water will be like glass and you'll be able to see the mountains reflected in it. But I won't be here. I am covered in salt. This is like being on the saltiest ocean ever. You think the Dead Sea is salty? You think the Great Salt Lake is salty?
You're right, it's drying on you.
This is saltier. Yeah, look at that. My boots are crystallized, it's on my pants, it's on my camera. Woo. Oh man, Paul's feet are all tore up and the salt water is stinging. But he's tough. Paul's a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fi. He's embracing the suck. Boy, speaking of the Marines, I feel like I'm in the Navy. I'm floating 282 feet below sea level. That's like being in a submarine. Well, anybody who's watching this and thinks they might want to come out here and canoe or kayak on Lake Manly, I'm here to tell you, it's possible. It's just a lot of work for Paul. Coming back in to the takeout, which is only about another mile of dragging to the truck. Boat ramp, okay. Don't forget to check for mussels. Oh, we're starting to drag. Might be time for me to get out. All right, back on to solid salt.
Once we were back on dry land, Paul strapped the wheels back on the canoe and dragged it all the way back to the parking area, past the crowds of tourists who'd left their shoes lined up neatly along the edge of the boardwalk while they went wading in the salty muck, and headed back to tie the canoe down in the bed of his truck, Big Hoss. And I headed for the passenger seat in my flip-flops.
Let's see how soggy my socks are in here. I definitely sprung a leak. Boy, it's rusty.
But I had thought ahead and brought my flip-flops, so I just hung my socks on my galoshes to dry and enjoyed the beautiful drive back through Death Valley to our little corner of the desert. All that sitting on my butt being dragged around the lake in a canoe had really worked up an appetite, so I asked Paul to stop in Shoshone.
All right, in order to thank Paul for dragging my fat ass around Lake Manly, I told him I'd take him for lunch at the world famous Crowbar Cafe right here in Shoshone. Just remodeled, newly remodeled kitchen, bathrooms. Let's find out what's on the menu. Are you hungry?
Yes.
I bet you are, man. You must have worked up quite an appetite dragging that canoe back and forth.
Yep.
Oh, wow, nice. Look. Everything's all fancy. Hi. Hi, how you doing? We're doing good. We're hungry. We just went kayaking on Lake Manly. We'll sit over at the bar side because there's better ambiance in here. Look how cool this old bar is. Oh, and that's a rail from the TNT Railroad.
Yeah, that's the highlight, I think.
Yeah, I noticed that last time I was sitting here. This is from the Tonopah and Tidewater Railroad, and you can see there's the names of all the different mines and the different stops. There's the Queen of Sheba. There's the Sigma. Oh, the Billy mine. I've heard of that one. Anyway, I better sit down and figure out what I want to eat. They do have some good dishes here. They can make a great burger. Paul's got an ice cold beer. How's the beer?
It is excellent. It is a really good dark beer.
Dark beer.
Yeah, it's not super carbonated. It's got the perfect amount for taking big thirsty sips.
Yeah.
After a hard
Don't you want to wash the salt off your hands?
I am going to as soon as we order.
Okay, yeah, same. I am covered in salt, so, but not as much as you. Okay, I'm getting a burger. Why not?
One burger or take a burger, both with fries, right?
Yes,
Yes.
please. Thank you. I don't like beer, so I'm having root beer. And it's a root beer float. Oh, yummy. Look at that Ortega burger. Paul got the club burger. It's loaded up with bacon.
Need some salt.
Oh, you don't have enough on your hands already? All right, Paul, thank you for taking me out there and floating around. It was a good time. I'm stuffed now. I'm going to go pass out. What are you up to?
I'm gonna go soak. I'm going straight to my hot tub.
He's got his own private hot spring. And he did invite me to go soak in it, but I'm tired. All right, well, I'll see you next time I need pulling out of the mud or my car breaks down or something like that.
Again.
There he goes. Better call Paul. This time, hauling a canoe. And me, I'm just hauling my raunchy, sodden socks and salty, leaky galoshes up to the compound to hose them off.